Hello and welcome to this edition of Fi TV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you just a few blocks from Florida's capital. We are in the midst of committee weeks in advance of the 2022 Florida legislative session. Today, we are joined by Chair and Representative Chris Latvala. Thanks for coming on Fi TV.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you are chairing all things education and employment on the subcommittee. Talk to us. What's it been like to chair that committee?
It's been an honor to chair the Education and Employment Committee for the Speaker. We do everything from pre-K up through the college and university system, and then this term he added employment issues for the workforce and career source boards due to the recent issues that they've had.
Yeah. So he's just giving you the easy stuff, basically, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's think about these issues. What are some issues that you've championed, and then talk to us about what you typically bring to that committee that you're passionate about.
Sure. Personally, child welfare has been an important issue of mine. I passed Jordan's Law a couple years ago. That will be the proudest thing that I've ever done in the Florida legislature, and I believe it'll protect kids.
Tell us how that law worked.
So it was as a result of a child that was murdered in my district, 2-year-old Jordan Beliveau. And now law enforcement throughout Florida, when they have an interaction with somebody that has a child protective investigation ongoing, the law enforcement will be notified of that. And so if they pull you over and there's a investigation ongoing, even though that's a civil investigation that DCF does, the law enforcement will be made aware of that. So they could use that information with the case that they're doing actively. So if they need to call DCF and say, hey, we have this individual, we want, if it's a domestic violence case, if it's a child abuse case, then DCF can make a direct, an immediate action. And in Jordan's case, that was very important because both of his parents had law enforcement interactions right before his death. And the law enforcement did not know that both of them were under child protective investigations. And another part of that bill was it made Florida the first in the nation to have brain injury training for children under the age of 6 for judges, law enforcement, and child welfare folks.
Wow. Chair, that's a huge one by itself, and you think of all the aspects of how the educational system contacts families. It's amazing. This year, of course, we have the FSA conversation happening. How do you think changing how we're testing and evaluating our students is going to impact the entirety of the K through 12 system?
Well, it's going to be a continuing conversation. Testing, assessment, is important, but we certainly are open to that conversation with the governor, and as soon as we have a bill, we'll take a look at it and evaluate it, and give it its due diligence that it deserves.
Yeah. In your role, what sort of activities, we know we've had other members on in the last couple days talking about school boards who have not, followed the rule of law or the Constitution, and they've defied the governor. What do you expect to see there in your committees with regard to mask mandates and things like that?
Well, there's a wide range of things that school boards have not followed. And I would even go back to 2018, February 14th, 2018 was a defining moment in my legislative career, saddest day, and I would say in Florida's recent history, and that was the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting. And the weeks after, we passed the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school safety bill, and several of those parents have become friends of mine. And they did not sign up to become lobbyists. They had, one was an airplane pilot. They had different jobs, and they kissed their kids goodbye. They never saw them again because they were murdered at school. And so these parents did not sign up to try to change laws, and not only in Florida, but around the country. But I wear on my wrist a bracelet for Gina Montalto. Her dad's a friend of mine. And it reminds me that every year we can do more in school safety. But you know, one of the most egregious school boards that still does not follow everything that we set forth 3 years ago in school safety is Broward County, and that's the county that this massacre happened. And so, you know, if Broward County can't even figure out school safety, you know, and they thumb the nose at the governor when it comes to, you know, masking and other things, you know, there's people that should not call themselves, you know, elected servant or elected officials or public servants.
Yeah. Wow. What hefty issues those will be that you know, on the House side will have to deal with. I mean, I'm assuming those are going to be oxygen stealers when they come up. I'm envisioning packed, you know,
and I mean,
rooms.
there's some things that, you know, people, you know, school boards thumb their nose, you know, at for political reasons, but school safety should be something that Republicans and Democrats agree on. Right. And there are still school boards that have problems, and school districts have problems implementing, including the school district where the massacre happened, and that was 3 years ago, and they're still having problems implementing it.
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. Once again, Florida's eyes go to Broward County, this time not for an election, but on school boards.
Yeah, just incompetence.
It's amazing. Well, good luck on that issue for sure. All right, so let's turn your focus to your district.
Sure.
What sort of local bills are you working on this year for your constituents in Pinellas County?
We have a bill for the East Lake. They're an unincorporated area in North Pinellas, and it basically just says that for 10 years they're not going to be incorporated into the surrounding municipalities. Okay. North Pinellas, a lot of those folks like to stay unincorporated.
Yeah.
So we're just going to protect
Well, you
them.
only have 37 municipalities in Pinellas County. You probably have 20 of those in your district. How do you work with so many jurisdictions packed within one tight area?
You know, Pinellas County is a unique area, and a lot, or a unique county, and a lot of, you know, every city is different. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just, you know, kind of dealing with each one individually, and sometimes they're mad at you, and sometimes they like you.
So when we think about these county level issues, and then you kind of step back to your macro chair position in education, you know, how do you balance member bills from, say, freshmen like Representative Hawkins to the speaker's priorities in education? How do you approach that kind of conversation?
Well, I mean, the speaker certainly is a dear friend of mine, and you know, his priorities may outweigh some others, you know, frankly. But you know, when I look at a bill, it doesn't matter if it's a Democratic bill or a Republican bill. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. And last year we passed several Democratic bills. Representative Daley had several that we passed. Representative Hemchofsky, who is a Broward County Democrat who does a wonderful job in school safety, for instance.
Big time moderate. Yeah.
And during the school shooting, she was the Parkland mayor, who was instrumental. She came up here numerous times after the shooting, and she's now a state representative. Her and I work very closely together on school safety issues. And so, you know, what's right is right. And so it doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, certainly there are times when, you know, Republicans and Democrats disagree, and sometimes, you know, those are the fun times, and after we argue and you know, yell at each other, we'll go have lunch and crack jokes. You know, that's how it's supposed to be.
The civil process, I love it. All right, so you literally have grown up in this process. I mean, your father was involved and intensely. Now, when you look at, we're coming up on a redistricting year, and you think of all the important issues that in a normal year you would have to address, but then when you look at redistricting, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. How do you approach a session when you know you've got one of those massive issues that could hypothetically take all the time away from some of these other important issues? Like, how do you approach a session like this?
Well, I think the speaker picked a great chair to lead the House's redistricting effort, and Chair Leak. I think he'll do a wonderful job, and he'll be open, transparent. And I don't expect there to be any issues. No, and I think that he's going to follow and we're all going to follow the Constitution.
Of course.
And there's going to be public input, and I think in the meetings, the couple meetings that we've had, including this week, the ranking member has. And I don't want to put words in Representative Geller's mouth, but it seems that he's been pleased with Chair Leak's leadership on the committee. Yeah. And so I think that it's going to be a very transparent process. And I think when you're dealing with redistricting, transparency is the most important part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at, it's every 10 years. So these are the things we know about. We know you're going to be dealing with FSA testing, potentially restructuring. We know redistricting is coming, but there's always that sleeper out there that no one's expecting.
Right, and last year it was COVID, and there's always an issue that dominates, session that, you did not realize was going to happen.
Right.
And so, and that issue hasn't reared its head yet, but. When it does, we'll be ready for it.
All right. So in our closing time here, we always love to ask people the question about streaming. But before we get there, if you had to write this year's headline on this session, and you're prognosticating, you're pulling out the crystal ball, what do you think the headline will be at the end of this year's session?
That is a very good question.
All right, we won't hold you to it.
I think that it's, I think there's going to be at times contentiousness because of some of what you mentioned, but I think we're going to do what's right when the time is right.
All right. Well, fair enough. That was well answered. Right. It was a tough question. It was a little bit of a curveball. All right. So before we go, we always ask all of our guests this: when you're not fighting to make Florida better, when you're not working on your constituency issues, and this is a very minuscule part of your time, maybe 10 minutes a day, maybe, I don't even know. What do you like to watch? What do you like to stream to take your mind off things?
I like Billions.
Billions?
Yeah.
Great show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Great show. I need to catch up on the latest season. So
you will enjoy it.
I love it. Well, Chair Latvala, thank you very much for coming on so many times to Phi TV and sharing your thoughts, your insights on the process. So valuable, and I know our viewers love it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Phi TV. For more interviews like this one, make sure you hit us up on our social media feed. And for now, thanks for tuning in.